We have one more exceptional speaker before we take our break. So if you can hold tight for just one more. She's amazing. She's one of our Hall of Fame honorees tonight, and she's going to be talking about how technology is changing the role of education. So do we have Lynda Weinman in the room? There she is, co-founder and executive chair of lynda.com.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, and it's a great honor to be here and to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. It's really exciting. I kind of divided my talk into 3 chapters. I wanted to talk about my early influences, the story of my company, which is called lynda.com, and then about reinventing education. And it's a very good segue from Diane's talk because I'm going to touch on a lot of the same things. So I was born in 1955, and I was a very good student. I loved school. And then my parents got divorced when I was about 6 years old. And at the time, that was actually not a very common thing. It was in 1961, and I felt like I was the only kid in the world who came from a divorced family. A lot of people didn't even know what the word divorce meant. And it kind of threw me into a depression. And I stopped liking school. And I stopped caring, and I stopped getting good grades. And when I was in junior high, I read a book that changed my life called Summerhill, which is out of print. And it was about a school in England that let students learn whatever they wanted. There were no prerequisites. And they maintained that if you did that, eventually the students would get bored of doing nothing, they would figure out what they were interested in, they would develop self-motivation, and they would figure out what they wanted to learn and wanted to be. So I was so enamored with this idea. My parents were lower middle class to middle class. We had 0 extra income in our family. So I actually got a job at a Der Wiener Schnitzel. It was my first job when I was 15. And I earned minimum wage, which at the time was $1.35 an hour. And I made $80 a month, and I went to a headmaster of an alternative high school. And I said, would you accept $80 a month for tuition for me to go to your school? I really want to go to a school like this. And he agreed. And that changed my life. And I did, in that school, went to a class on women's studies. And at the time I thought feminism was really uncool, or probably in that day's nomenclature, it wasn't groovy or it wasn't bitchin'. That was what we used to say. We didn't have the word cool in our vernacular. And I read these 3 books, and they changed my life because I came from a mother and a stepmother who were both stay-home moms, and I was never really brought up to believe that I could be something other than a wife and a mom. And so this plus my alternative education gave me the belief that I could do whatever I chose to do. And that was actually something that was a huge gift that many people don't get at the young age of being in high school. So fast forward to 1982, and my boyfriend at the time brought home an Apple II Plus computer, and he was very annoyed with me that I wasn't interested. So to please him, I cracked open the manual and started to learn how to use it. And I could not believe how horrible the manual was. And I just tried and eventually figured out a few things, and then I started to like it. And he actually, about 6 months later, told me that he was a computer widow because I liked the computer so much. But I had no idea that I could be a computer trainer as a career because it really kind of didn't exist at the time. But people started to ask me, how did you do this? How did you do that? And I was just so enthusiastic about it that I shared what I learned and kind of created this career for myself as a computer consultant and a computer trainer. I stumbled into the store to buy inkjet printer for my dot matrix printer, inkjet for my dot matrix printer, and I discovered the Macintosh. And I fell in love. I couldn't afford it. I had a May Company charge card and enough credit to charge the cost of my first Macintosh. And it changed my life because at the time I was working in the film industry in animation and doing special effects. And I learned that I could do animation and a lot of things that I was doing in my real career on the computer, and it just became my passion and my hobby. And I was really lucky to be able to apply and get a job working directly with William Shatner, who was the director of Star Trek V, to create the very first computer animatic or pre-visualization of the movie. And this project that I worked on got me a lot of notoriety, and I was written up. And that kind of launched a whole other career where more people found out about me. And I was asked to write magazine articles, and I started to become a visible person in the computer industry. And in 1985, I was invited by Apple at the amazing pay of $1,000 a day. I remember, I just couldn't believe it. To go around the world and speak about the work that I did on Star Trek V. And I got to go to Bangkok and Tokyo, and it was just really this amazing trip. And this is me when I was 30. And then in 1989, I had my daughter, who is about to turn 22. This is a picture of her when she was born, and that changed my life. And I was no longer really able to work in the film industry anymore, because in the film industry, you are not allowed to have a personal life. You can't take sick days. You're working on a film. You really just have to put in whatever hours it takes. So I was invited to give a lecture at Art Center College of Design, which is in Pasadena, California. And for those of you who've never heard of it, it's kind of the Harvard of art schools. It's a very amazing college that teaches graphic design. And they loved my talk, and they invited me to become a full-time faculty member there. So my very first teaching job was at this amazing college where I taught for 6 years. And I taught interactive design, imaging, computer imaging, animation, motion graphics, courses like that. A friend showed me an early web browser in 1994. And I was just kind of thunderstruck, thinking all my art students need to learn how to create images and put their portfolios online. And so I want to go to the bookstore and buy a book to teach them how to do this. And I went into the bookstore, and there was only one book on HTML at the time, and I realized no one has written this book, and I have to write it. And the reason why I decided that I had to write it was because I'd already had experience writing curriculum, teaching. I knew how to teach myself things. One of the secret sauces of being a teacher is that you actually get to be a lifelong learner, and you have to learn in order to teach. And so I just took this upon myself as an assignment to learn how to publish images and movies and the graphics to the internet, and I ended up writing a book called Designing Web Graphics. It was translated into 20 or 30 languages, became a national and international bestseller, and kind of the go-to tome at the time on how to publish to the web. And so that began lynda.com. I got an email from someone who was Debbie at Debbie.com, and she had a website that had all the Debbies on the web, links to all the Debbies on the web. And there were only about 25 links. I mean, this is really early on. And so I went, and for $35, I bought lynda.com. And that became my kind of playground sandbox to teach myself web design while I was writing the book. This was my first web page, lynda.com, in 1995. And what ended up happening is the book became a bestseller. My husband and I decided that we were going to move to this little town, Ojai, California. About 9,000 people live there, with the idea that I could still write these books, and he was an illustrator at the time, and so all he needed was FedEx and a modem, and we could kind of live in a more rural environment, raise our daughter in this more idyllic place. So he had the problem with moving to Ojai was that I really missed teaching, and I was being asked to actually speak all over the country because I'd written the book that was such a, the best-selling book on web design, and there really weren't even web design classes yet being taught in community college or anywhere. It was very hard to get this information. So I was kind of the it person at the it time in the it industry. And so he had this idea, could we open a place for you to teach in Ojai, and people would come to you instead? And I thought it was kind of crazy, but we rented a local high school over spring break that had a computer lab, and we invited people to come to our class on our website, lynda.com. The class sold out. Only 2 people came from California, and 1 person came from Vienna, Austria, to our class. And it kind of blew our minds. And then he wrote up a business plan. He said, I think we could start a school. We opened the Lynda.com training center in Ojai, California in 1997. Our first year, we did $1.7 million in revenue. And quite amazing. And people came from all over the world. We had actually someone come from the Vatican. I mean, it amazed us, from MarthaStewart.com, from LL Bean, and we even had people from the porn industry, all kinds of crazy people. It was really, really amazing. And then what happened was the dot-com crash and 9/11. And no one wanted to come to Ojai, California, even though we hadn't been involved in the whole dot-com, age and era where we were trying to build our company, to flip our company, and got a lot of investor money. We've actually, to this minute, never taken any investment dollars at all. A lot of our customers had. So our whole customer base dropped out from under us. People didn't want to travel anymore. And so we decided to put the videos of our courses online and start a subscription service that for $25 a month, people could subscribe to any course that we published. So this was our classroom website. These are, sorry, I can't tell what slides are coming up next, so got to backtrack a little bit here. We bought all these iMacs with our life savings. We basically invested about $20,000 and bought 10 iMacs and 10 PCs, and that's me in 1997 in the classroom. Eventually, we had such a demand for our classes that we had to hire other teachers. We brought on other teachers. This is Garrick Chow, who still works for us today. And in 2004, our company was about 11 people, and here they all are, or it might be more than that, I should have counted. But anyway, this was our whole company. And every time we would get another 1,000 members to our subscription service, we would have a cake. And the first year, we didn't even get 1,000 members. So this is fast forwarding 3 years into it, we had 7,000 members. It started to happen too fast to where we couldn't have cakes anymore for 1,000 people. And today we have 230 employees. We've hired 130 of them this year so far. We have over 1 million members, over 2,000 instructor authors, and over 60,000 video tutorials. This is what the front page of Lynda.com looks like today. It's a little washed out on the screen. These are a lot of the categories. You can see we teach 3D animation, audio, business, like things like Excel and Word, design, developer. We have a documentary series. These are all the different categories. And in the US, we are in the top 1,000 most highly trafficked websites. We're being used from people from over 237 countries. And these are some of our customers. We have not only an individual membership, but we have corporate, academic, and government memberships where entire companies can have Lynda.com memberships. So this is really pretty extraordinary. I had to learn that we had the office of the president from one of our employees. That really shocked me that I didn't know that, and delighted me. So I want to just really briefly show you a little guided tour of what it would be like to navigate through Lynda.com. And remember, I'm going to have 3 sections to this talk. So I'm in the middle one just about the company, and then I'm going to talk about the reinventing education.
When you first come to the online training library, chances are you've come to learn something. So how do you find what you're looking for? Across the top of nearly every page of our site, we have a series of navigation menus. If you learn by subject, you might decide to choose, say, photography, and a landing page will appear listing all of the photography courses we offer. Or if you're looking for a specific software product, you can roll over the software menu, and you'll see that software products are listed in the left column and software companies are listed to the right. Let's say I'm interested in learning.
So I'm not going to show the whole thing. And then I wanted to show you a little sample of what the video training is like. So I'm going to also show a very short clip of this.
So I've selected Stanza at the bottom, and then you click Add, and then just add your EPUB, which I've already done. So once this has been added, when you click Sync, then the EPUB is added to your device. Now let's take a look at this EPUB as seen on Stanza on my iPad. After I double click it, here is one of the pages, and it's kind of interesting to note the differences. Do you see how
So a lot of our training is like that. It's screenshots of computer screens with an author's voice narrating over, but we also do a lot of live action courses. We have many of them on many topics, but this was really neat. A team of one of our crews put this behind the scenes video together, slideshow of shooting a course at lynda.com.
Shooting an all live action course, like Foundations of Photography, Exposure, is a resource-intensive process. Not only does it require extensive studio production, but it also requires handling the challenges of outdoor location shooting. From early on in the production cycle, the producer is tasked with scouting locations to find ones that will meet the high standards of a lynda.com live action photography course. These locations need to be exceptional in character, beauty, charm, grit, color, or any of a number of other characteristics vital to the topic. For Foundations of Photography Exposure, we selected the colorful downtown Ventura area known as Figueroa Plaza. Not only does this locale have mass appeal, it has a wonderful waterfall that looks great and also served in education.
So, sorry, I'm going to cut it off short. But at lynda.com, we like to say content is queen. And then these were some really cute tweets. Some husband whose wife was questioning a credit card charge to lynda.com. And then someone who responded to him on Twitter, and I love this, lynda.com, who is a nerd's most awesome something on the side. So next I'd like to talk about reinventing education. I don't know how many of you saw Waiting for Superman. It's a rather sobering movie, but this is a quote from that movie just about the horrible dropout rates that we have. And we also have pretty terrible college dropout rates as well. And I think one of the problems, and Denise actually talked about this in her talk, is that so much has changed in the last decade. For one thing, what this little video is saying is really true, that we could not have even predicted what some of the jobs were going to be that people are being trained for, or being educated for. And I think there's also a really big question about who exactly are we teaching. And I love this term, digital immigrant versus digital native, because anybody who's over 25 is a digital immigrant. And most teachers are over 25. So there's a real gap between who is teaching and who is being taught. And one of the things that most of us grew up doing is something that would be characterized as having deep attention. Being able to read a long book, being able to study long enough to, get a master's degree, being able to just really focus on only one thing. Yet what's happening today is we have a completely different generation, and some are calling them the media generation, Generation M, the millennials. They have a different type of modality for their attention, and it's hyperattention. And this study done by the Kaiser Foundation talks about how from 8 to 18-year-olds, that the total amount of media that they're consuming in a day is over 10 hours, almost 11 hours. And of that, only 38 minutes is spent reading. And Denise talked about this, is Google making us stupid? We read a lot of reports about this. In fact, it's probably true that the brains of people who are consuming 11 hours of media a day are being rewired through neuroplasticity. It's proven that if you change the needs, the brain adapts and grows different pathways. So something really struck me, that in the last 10 to 20 years, we have shifted our focus in education to be so firmly set on standardized tests. This is how we are grooming our students. This is how we are judging the success of our education programs. This is how they're getting funded, how schools are getting funded. We are basically creating a generation of students who know how to take tests well and know how to cram for tests. And we've created something that I would call fear-based learning, totally the opposite of the kind of education that I got. Meanwhile, these same students in the millennial generation are on games and blogging and the internet, and they're learning all kinds of stuff outside of the classroom. And so I think we have to ask ourselves the question, what kind of student are we trying to produce? And do we want our students to grow up to just consume all this media, or to be the creators of what's going to come next? Are we grooming them to get a good grade, or are we grooming them to love to learn and to actually pursue knowledge? I don't know how many of you have read this book, but it's called The Story of Success. And it charts, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, it charts many of the most successful people in the world and talks about how a theme that he discovered that was common was that they all had 10,000 hours to become masters of whatever craft they practiced. We're talking about mastery, not cramming for tests. This is a fantastic book, The Psychology of Success. And it talks about how there are two mindsets. There's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And people who have a fixed mindset are very worried about what other people think of them, very worried about their titles, very worried about their grades, very worried about that their clothes are cool. And there are people who have a growth mindset who are willing to be bad at something before they're going to be good at something, who believe that if they put in the effort and they put in the time, that they will actually become good at something rather than believing that they were born with it or they were popular enough for it. And I think that's a really powerful idea. And then this is another book that I've read recently that I think is really great about the new culture of learning, how learning is happening outside the classroom. It's happening everywhere. We're in the information age. The information is not confined to the four walls of a classroom. And in my opinion, I believe innately we all love to learn. And that the type of skills that we were hearing about in the last session, being able to interview, being able to hold a conversation, that these are skills that are not being taught in school anymore. It's become so much more easy to measure through the standardized tests than to actually teach and actually impart knowledge. And we don't find self-motivated people. They don't have basic problem-solving skills, know how to communicate, be able to collaborate, hold conversations, be able to listen. These are all the skills that we need in industry. This is why those of us who are hiring are having trouble finding qualified candidates, because they don't have these skills. They don't know how to present, good relationships with clients. I heard this in the other session during lunch, how to resolve conflict, critical thinking, and, forbid, find someone's passion, calling, purpose. So there's a big movement in education reform about mastery versus grades. Because when we label somebody, you're an F student, you're a C student, you're a D student, that label can affect them for the rest of their lives. And there are a couple of short videos that I'm going to share. This is one that is from two high school teachers, and they call what they do a flipped classroom.
I'm Aaron Sams, and I teach science here at Woodland Park High School. My ultimate goal, I guess, as a teacher is to help students become learners who can learn for themselves and by themselves. One of the problems that I was guilty of even prior to flipping my classroom around was the classroom was centered around me. I told them exactly what to learn, how to learn it, what assignments to do to learn it, and when to learn it, and how to prove to me that they learned it. I don't do that anymore. We changed the place in which content is delivered. Instead of standing in front of a class and delivering, here's how you do this type of problem, here's how this works, I deliver that direct instruction now asynchronously at home through these videos that we make with Camtasia Studio.
Times till whole.
Oh, we didn't do that last time.
The last step, they were already whole numbers. We had 1, 1, and 4.
Yeah.
Here we don't have a whole number. So
I'm going to skip forward a little bit, but what I loved this was in this new teaching model where the students, we're really flipping it around because they're doing the homework in school and the lecture at home. And some of the quiet students coming out of their shells, some of the students rarely have adults who listen to them. When we talk about mentorship and actually being a teacher and touching someone's lives, this is how we have to touch them. We have to actually talk to them, get them to present to us, get them to come out of their shells. Another kind of poster child for this sort of teaching is Salman Khan, and I hope you will all watch his talk on TED.com. And he was an analyst at a hedge fund, and he started recording math videos, put them on YouTube, and got millions of views, and decided to quit his day job and start a company that basically just provides free math videos to anybody. And during his TED Talk, I thought the really important part of it was something that he's been doing with measuring proficiency as opposed to giving grades. And I want to share this little clip.
And so the paradigm is the teacher walks in every day, every kid works at their own pace, and a teacher this is actually a live dashboard from Los Altos School District, and they look at this dashboard. Every row is a student, every column is one of those concepts. Green means the student's already proficient, blue means that they're working on it, no need to worry, red means that they're stuck. And what the teacher does is literally just says, let me intervene on the red kids. Or even better, let me get one of the green kids who are already proficient in that concept to be the first line of attack and actually tutor their peer. I kind of come from a very data-centric reality, so we don't want that teacher to even go and intervene and have to ask the kid awkward questions, oh, what do you not understand, or what do you do understand, and all of the rest. So our paradigm is to really arm the teachers with as much data as possible, really data that in almost any other field is expected if you're in finance or marketing or manufacturing, and so the teachers can actually diagnose what's wrong with the students so that they can make their interaction as productive as possible. So now the teachers know exactly what the students have been up to, how long they've been spending every day, what videos have they been watching, when did they pause the videos, what did they stop watching, what exercises are they using. What have they been focused on? The outer circle shows what the exercises they're focused on. The inner circle shows the videos they're focused on. And the data gets pretty granular, so you can actually see the exact problems that the student got right or wrong. Red is wrong, blue is right. The leftmost question is the first question that the student attempted. They watched the video right over there. And then you could see eventually they were able to get 10 in a row. It's almost like you can almost see them learning over those last 10 problems. They also got faster. The height is how long it took them. So, when you talk about self-paced learning, it makes sense for everyone. In education speak, differentiated learning. But it's kind of crazy what happens when you actually see it in a classroom. Because every time we've done this, in every classroom we've done, over and over again, if you go 5 days into it, there's a group of kids who've raced ahead, and there's a group of kids who are a little bit slower. And in a traditional model, if you did a snapshot assessment, you say, oh, these are the gifted kids, these are the slow kids. Maybe they should be tracked differently. Maybe we should put them in different classes. But when you let every student work at their own pace, and we see it over and over and over again, you see students who took a little bit extra time on one concept or the other, but once they get through that concept, they just race ahead. And so the same kids that you thought were slow 6 weeks ago, you now would think are gifted. And we're seeing it over and over and over again. It makes you really wonder kind of how much all of the labels, maybe a lot of us have benefited from, were really just due to a coincidence of time.
So the labeling of students being so damaging for lifetime. So I am almost out of time. I thought I might run a little bit long. My apologies. But just put these two graphs together just in terms of some of the advantages to online learning. I'm not saying it's an answer to everything. But I think some of the potential is that you can have personalized learning. It's not about a degree necessarily, but what you want and need to learn. You're not being pushed by a grade, but you're finding intrinsic motivation to learn something. That you have no judgment. The idea that it is anonymous can be very liberating to a lot of people. And that teachers have the opportunity to become mentors instead of teaching the tools and the facts, to share the big ideas, to encourage the critical thinking, and that students have the opportunity to do all of these things. And I think really the big question of the day that I will leave everybody with is we need to figure out what the sweet spot is between what can be done better online, what can be better done in person. And it's not to say that either are the 100% answer, but there is a sweet spot somewhere, and I think that really is the big question of the day. So I think my time is up, but thank you all so much.